Moose Country, welcome to another episode of Let Us Be Heard.
What's up, Moose fam? Calling back here for another episode of Let Us Be Heard. Joined, of course, by my co-host, Dylan Gorman. Hey, Dylan, what's up, brother?
Not a whole lot. Hopefully this is the final time we do this.
Yeah, for some reason, just so you guys know, OBS has been really finicky with me tonight. I even uninstalled and reinstalled it. So after this video, I'll check it out and see why it's giving us problems. But we just had an interview with an amazing guest. And all
Former
we have,
Moosehead, obviously.
all we have is audio from it. It didn't give me the video. Still worth the watch. It's
Well, worth the listen.
worth
You can watch it. There are points where he will bring stuff up that you would want to look at. We can find good quality enough pictures to go along with what he's saying.
Yeah, and he gave us some behind the scenes looks at a couple stories when he was with the Mooseheads, and he's a world class athlete. He's like Dylan said, he's from Cole Harbor. He's won a couple awards.
I said that in the last take. So he's a local boy from considers himself from Cole Harbor. He's played on the Mooseheads. He won something along the lines in hockey. What is it again? So
It's something cup. Cup something.
did he win the Tim's Cup? Like Tim Hortons Coffee Cup? No.
No.
Well, he won the Calder Cup. He won the Calder Cup.
Something to do with tools, like you mentioned before. So that's like
Yeah.
like DeWalt
Yeah,
tools.
like they make a measuring tape, I think it is.
DeWalt tools.
Just clicked.
What?
He won something known as. Wait, give me 1 second. I think I might have something here to jog our memory.
All right. We're just being silly.
You ready for it?
Let's see it. Oh,
The Stanley Cup.
Why is it so small? You think they'd make them bigger than that?
Right? And like they say, it's 30 pounds. I don't think this is. Let's go.
So
no,
obviously,
he hosted the real one.
So obviously, we're talking about none other than
Yes, Joe.
Joe DePenta. Hey, Joe DePenta! What is up, man? How you doing?
Good, Colin. Dylan, it's good to be with you guys.
Thank you so much for taking some time out for us. I know there's a bunch of fans out there just can't wait to hear from you, hear about the year you spent with the Moose and the rest of your career as well. Yeah, just again, thank you. I'm going to get it started right away with your favorite Moose memory, the time that instantly pops in your mind whenever you think about your time with the Herd.
My favorite Moose memory and what I think about when I think about that year in 99, 2000, they were hosting Memorial Cup that was the first time the Memorial Cup had been hosted in Halifax. We hadn't hosted the World Junior, which we did in 2003. So this was a big deal. The city was on fire for it. We, unfortunately, as a team, lost in the second round of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League playoffs against Rimouski, and they went on to win the league and went on to the Memorial Cup. We were the host team, but we had 50 days between games. So we had to play a few exhibition games against college or university teams locally. And we were running the stadium stairs at Scotiabank Center, then the Metro Center. And we were doing everything we could to stay in shape. The team fired the head coach. So we had promoted our associate coach, Sean McKenzie, who took over. So it was a pretty tumultuous time, a lot of adversity. So I think of that, when I think about that year, I think of the adversity. We obviously had a good team. Throughout the season, we were one of the top teams in the league, but we just ran into a tough second round opponent, and then we had all that adversity. But we went into the tournament. We won the first two games surprisingly against everybody, surprised everybody, and we faced the Rimouski team that beat us in the second round. If we could win that game, we would have got a bye to the finals. Unfortunately, we lost. Brad Richards was the star forward on that team, and as you know, he went on to have a very long and successful NHL career.
Yep.
And we got to realize, why that was the case. He was definitely the best player in the country at the time. And so we ended up falling short of the Memorial Cup. We didn't make it to the finals. that was a good run. And my memory is a sea of white, the fans, and Ramsey Abid getting 2 hat tricks in each of the first 2 games. And our move was take the jersey and go like this to the fans, and that was what we went into the. You got it. That's what we went into the end of the. That was our part of the mojo, getting us excited. It was when we score a goal, we were going to do that, and to have that celebration. So we were having a blast, having a ball, and even though we came short, it was still an amazing experience for us, and certainly surprised a lot of teams, and the community was just on fire. The city was on fire. So that's what I think about when I think of that 99-2000 year.
So it speaks volumes to your character and your team spirit when one of your favorite memories is somebody else getting 2 goals. Like, I love that. That's a wicked answer, man. So do you still keep track of the Moose? Do you still follow QMJHL whatsoever?
Yeah, no, I was at the game on Saturday night with
Nice.
my daughter. My daughter is 11 years old. She plays for the girls hockey team here I live in the Coal Harbor area in the Metro East Inferno. So we've been playing hockey. I've been coaching for the last 6 years, and so she's become more and more of a fan. We go to the games. So I've been, I think, at 3 or 4 games this season, and plans to go to many more throughout the year. Last year, I think we got to, I'd say, 10% of the games, and now that my daughter's getting older, there's more of an appetite to go to more. And so we're just having a blast watching the team, especially last year, and they look great. And this year, #1 in Canada so far, looks to be another promising season. So we're excited about the team. It's a good time to be a fan for sure.
So did you get to
It
sit down?
truly is.
Did you get to sit down and chat with your former teammate over the weekend? Because he was in attendance as well, Benedict.
No, I didn't see him there, and that's cool that he got to go, and I know there was a big record that he owned for many years. So I didn't run into him. So I wish I had been able to connect with him.
So he's coming on the show tonight, right? Like he's actually coming on the show here tonight.
Oh,
Right
neat.
after you.
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
Is
Cool.
there a question you have in mind you'd like to ask him? It's okay if not. I know I'm putting you on the spot. But if you have something you'd like to ask, I'd love to ask him for you.
Not that comes top of my mind. Yeah, I remember driving with Benny. He would have been a rookie that season, and I was a 20-year-old, and so I remember driving with Benny, and I was in the back seat. He was the driver, and we were heading down Roby Street, just around where Tony's Donaire's Pizza is, and we were going. He was driving along, and Benny was turning around talking to us, and all I could think was, Benny, like, watch where you're going, like, I'm in the back seat, and he's going like this, laughing at some comments, and he literally went right through a red light, and like the red light was like red for like 2 or 3 4 seconds, and he was just going like this, and he went right through the red light, and I thought, oh my goodness, like that could have been really bad. And like Benny didn't even flinch. He probably doesn't even remember. I remember being horrified in the back seat, being like, oh my gosh, we're gonna crash, or we're gonna get crashed into. But somehow it worked out. So I don't know if Benny still drives that way or not, but hopefully it was just the first year driving, 17-year-old, and maybe he's a lot more. Hopefully he's better at doesn't make that same practice with turning his head and talking to people in the back seat.
I'm definitely gonna ask him now. That's what makes this show so great. Like, yes, you see the CHL interviews and such, and it's robotic, and we played good tonight, and this is the stuff I want to hear about. You know what I mean? Like, the cool
stuff you don't
behind the
get
scenes
to.
stuff. Yeah, man, that's
Exactly.
awesome. You got a bunch of questions for Depenta. Do you want to throw one out there, Dylan?
Yeah, so you talked about the year that you were with us. You played 1 season with the Mooseheads. That's after playing 2 at Boston University, and you were already drafted at the time when you came up. What was the big decision, and what helped you decide to come up and play for the Mooseheads after playing for Boston University and already being drafted? Did you feel like you had something to prove? I forgot when we hosted Memorial Cup that year. Was that a factor coming in? What was some of your reasons for coming up?
So I'll take you back to like the first year of the franchise. So obviously I was just a young teenager when the team came into existence. I would have been 13 or 14 years old, and I was on a plane ride. I was coming back from Toronto from a hockey tournament. I think I was in Pee Wee, second year Pee Wee, and I was on the plane. My mom was sitting next to me, and two guys sat behind me, and they caught my attention just the way their look, but I didn't know who they were, and I could hear their conversation, and they were talking about hockey, and I was listening more intently, and I figured they had something to do with either pro hockey or. I realized that, like on the hour and a half flight, eavesdropping, that they were with the Halifax Moosehead, who hadn't even started to play yet. They were brand new, and they hadn't even played the first game, and it was the head coach Clement Jodouin and the scout Donnie Matheson, the head scout, and they were talking to each other. And so I told my mom quietly, we were literally like, they were right behind us. I said, Mom, they were the Halifax Moosehead. So when we were getting off the plane, deboarding the plane, my mother, who's very outgoing and can talk to anyone, she just said, hey, my son Joe plays hockey, or Joey, that's how I was referred to in my younger days. And they were like, oh yeah, like, what's your son's name? And so she said, and the head scout said he knew who I was, and he may have, but I was still quite young to be on their prospect list. But he like was, they were very open to talk to me, and we were struck up a conversation, and they had the Moosehead's jersey with them. They were actually taking the jersey to go to a press conference at Moosehead Brewery to unveil the jersey. So the logo hadn't even been released yet to the public, and I get to wear it. They actually said, "Why don't you put the jersey on?" So I was the first ever hockey player to put the Moosehead jersey on in the history of the game.
A little bit of trivia there.
That's amazing.
And so I had that moment, and so it was always a dream of mine to play for the Moosehead. Got to go to the games, and obviously they were the big show in town. So when I got drafted, I was on my way to Boston University, and I had already committed to go to BU, and I went there for 2 years. At the time, I was as a junior player, I was going to be the team captain, a co-captain at Boston University, which was the first one since Jack O'Callahan when he was part of the 1980 dream team that won the gold medal in the Lake Placid. And so he was a Boston University player. He was the only other captain as a junior since then. And it was a big honor, but I was homesick. I had the opportunity to come home and play for my hometown team. It was going to be my last year that I was eligible to play for the Mooseheads. And it became an opportunity to come play hometown, live at home, experience a year of being a teenager, which I'd missed out on, been traveling and all that. So I decided to make and it was also good for my professional career because got to play a full 70, 80 games, 90 games with playoffs and experience all of that, which was setting me up for my first pro year the following year. And it actually allowed me to have better leverage for signing an NHL contract because I was too old to go back in the draft. And if the team that drafted me didn't sign me, I was a free agent, which is what happened. They offered me a contract, I turned it down, and I got free agent signing, and I ended up getting the contract I signed was twice as good as what I was offered
Nice.
by my draft team. So all of those factors played into it. And I wanted to tell the story of being the first player. It was almost foreshadowing that eventually I was going to get to wear the jersey.
And that was a really good year for you too, stacking up 56 points in 63 games as a defenseman. Like that's a commendable season.
Thank you. Yeah, I was one of the oldest players in the team, so I was obviously more mature physically than a lot of the players, and played for Boston University, which is real high level hockey. So I came in a good time, and it set me up in some ways for disappointment though when I turned pro, because I realized that the pro game was a little bit faster and I wasn't good enough to put up those types of numbers, and had to reinvent myself over the next few seasons. But it certainly was a lot of fun, and to be able to get 13 goals as a defenseman and to contribute offensively, that was a lot of fun. I remember getting 2 goals against the Hull Olympics in one of the games when I first came to the team, and I thought it was going to be real easy that year, and then it got harder. But there were some games that really felt they were a lot of fun. I think I got a hat trick one game actually against the Shawinigan Cataracts, so that was pretty cool too.
We actually just paid the Saturday night's game was the Cataracts.
That's right.
Yeah, you would have been in tennis. That's awesome.
So it's funny that you say you were at the Saturday night's game. I was the season ticket holder member of the game that game. That was me
Oh,
that got
nice.
that golden helmet.
Oh, hilarious. Yeah.
I want to touch on something you mentioned. You uh, turned down your first contract and decided to go the free agency route. What is the free agency like as a player? 'Cause you experienced it multiple times in the NHL. Did it get a little easier the more you got to know the process and what to expect? And was it still stressful wondering if you're going to get that next deal?
So when I played all those years, 11 seasons professionally, I never had more than one team wanting to sign me in the summer. It always worked out that there was a team wanted to sign me, and that was kind of like that was the team, and I didn't have to make a decision between two or three or four. Like I wasn't one of those free agents that had a bunch of teams lining up trying to make offers. And so when my first the first time around when I turned down the contract with Florida, my agent said, "I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to get you another contract, but you can roll the dice." So when I said, "Sure, let's try free agency," it was pretty nerve wracking. And he made a lot of phone calls, and there was a lot of no's. We're not interested. So when I got the contract offer with the Philadelphia Flyers, it was like, thank goodness, like because I had almost that was my chance to play pro hockey, and it could have backfired. Well, it worked out, and that's where I was meant to go. And I learned a lot in that first season, and it was a part of my development in learning how to play tougher and all that, which I learned there. But in subsequent off seasons, it was very much a stressful time. I remember getting a phone call once from my agent, and it was June 30th, and free agency. It's the same as it is now. July 1st is free agency, and we were on the golf course in Heartland Point. And my dad was with me, and I remember getting this call from my agent, and he was like, "Joe, the Vancouver Canucks wants to offer you a 2-year contract," and that's who I had played for in the Lockout season, and I had a good year. And they called me June 30th, knowing that I had a gun to my head because I had to make a decision in like 12 hours. And they waited that long on purpose to try to force me to sign this contract that wasn't beneficial for me. And I contemplated it. I hung up from my agent. I was talking to my dad, and like 2 holes later, my dad and I were chit-chatting about it, and then we took a break, and then he came back and he said, "You know what, Joe?" He said, "Tell your agent." He goes, "Call your agent back and have him tell the Vancouver Canucks to go f themselves." And my dad didn't use that type of language very often, and I never really heard him swear like that, and so I knew it was serious. And I
He
was
knew
like,
your worth.
you know,
He knew
yeah,
your worth.
he said they waited this long to call you. He said he just had a clarity, and so that was the clarity and the courage I needed to turn it down. And then the next week, Randy Carlisle got the head coaching job in Anaheim, who was my coach in Manitoba, and Randy loved me, and I had a good year for Randy. And then my phone rang a couple days later in Anaheim and said, "When do you sign with the Anaheim Ducks?" And that's really what precluded me to becoming a Stanley Cup champion. If I hadn't have had the courage, and my dad hadn't have that clarity and that courage to step up and say no to an opportunity, which could have been my last opportunity, I would never have landed in Anaheim, which would have been a totally different. Yeah, wouldn't have won the Stanley Cup.
It couldn't have been a better decision.
Yeah.
Staying on like that topic, kind of. This isn't one that we passed by or didn't send you, but what's it like playing hockey in California? Like how weird is that?
So I'll explain how weird it is. So just some little things. When I left the rink at 1 o'clock on a practice day, I was usually one of the last guys to leave the rink around 1 o'clock, and I would have my waters with me to hydrate, and I'd get in my car. It'd be 70 in Fahrenheit, in Celsius, it'd be 20 degrees Celsius, and I'd go home to my apartment, and my wife would be at the pool, and I'd go meet her at the pool, probably throw my swim trunks on, and we'd have sunbathes for the afternoon, and we'd go to the rink in flip flops, and that was just kind of the lifestyle. Now, when we won the Stanley Cup, to put that into perspective, when we partied in the room for a few hours and celebrated, and then when we came out, we were expecting fans to be around, and we didn't really know what to expect, but it was like a ghost town. It was like Everyone had celebrated.
Oh, that sucks.
Everyone had gone home, and the parking lot was completely empty. And it was like, oh, okay. And then we had this party in the parking lot, which was under a tent, and it didn't. We weren't fazed by it. It was just like it's just what it was. And then when we had the Stanley Cup for the several days, and we were taking it down to the beach, and everywhere we went, we had the Stanley Cup, and it was a big like week-long party in Anaheim. And we were down at the beach, and we were walking around with the Stanley Cup, and people were like drawn to it, as you'd imagine, and be like, come over and talk to us, and it drew a crowd. And but people would come over to us and say, who are you guys, and what is this trophy?
It's only the most prestigious trophy I've ever seen. Like it's the Stanley Cup. Wow, that's funny, man.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that nobody was out there, because even on like regular season, beginning of the season games for the Moose, we're out there 2 hours after game waiting for them to come out, just so we can say great job tonight. You know what I mean? So you played with Anaheim. So this also isn't a question, and I apologize. This isn't a question we sent you, but you were there for the Mighty Duck name change. What was that like? Like, what would that entail? Like New Jerseys, all that other stuff. Was it a shock to you guys? Did you guys know it was coming?
No, we had no idea. You know, my first year was in 2005, the year after the new owners purchased it from Disney, and we were still the Mighty Ducks and proud to be a Mighty Duck team. And then it was in the off season we found out that they were going to rebrand, and it was kind of out of the blue. But the owners wanted to take away from the Disney brand and go in a different direction, which is common and certainly in their right. So that's when we became the Anaheim Ducks, was that following year. And now with my daughter, 11 years old, I think a couple of years ago, we were scrolling through Netflix and discovered the Mighty Ducks movies, and she didn't at first want to watch them, and I think she's seen every one of them now, probably 3 or 4 times. And that's actually the first time I've ever watched the Mighty Ducks movies, was a couple of years ago with my daughter. I hadn't seen them before, so it really put a lot of things into context for me. And I wish I had taken the time to watch them when I was actually playing for the Mighty Ducks, but it was it wasn't a priority, and I was just not looking to spend 2 hours watching a kids movie. But they're pretty good movies.
I still watch them to this day. I watch them occasionally to this day. It's one of my favorite all-time movies. I absolutely love it. So I'm gonna get into something a little bit more lighthearted. Dylan's he's got a bunch more about statistics and where you played and stuff. That's kind of his niche. I wanna know, what was fan interaction like, compared to the Moose? I think you answered it with the empty parking lot. But playing in Halifax and playing in Anaheim, playing in Philadelphia, what was the difference in fan interaction from Halifax?
There was always loyal fans, no matter what city I ended up playing in. I played in 7 different cities over my 11-year pro career. I would say they all were, like, Halifax was a strong, I would say stronger than any of the American League teams I played on. The Chicago was pretty strong as well. They had a good following there. In the NHL, it's at a different level. There's more people, even though it wasn't it wasn't a Canadian city in terms of being in the NHL, which is a whole other level. It was still a good fan base, and they had loyal followers, and we had sellouts every game that we were in, that I was in Anaheim, and the people would wait for autographs afterwards, the games and whatnot. I think it was just the Stanley Cup. They just didn't know what to do. Like it was just, there was no precedent. Thankfully, it wasn't like in some of the other cities where you have rioting and that sort of thing, and people just kind of went home. And I'm sure everyone was super thrilled and happy about it. It was different. And I think, the Canadian cities, we played in Calgary once in the playoffs, and to put it into context, like we were always the last page of the sports section in Anaheim. Like there wasn't a lot of pressure outside of the rink, which played in our favor. Like there was no distractions when we were away from the rink, and we barely get recognized, or it was rare that somebody would get recognized and even know you played for the Ducks. So you just kind of be incognito. So that played into our advantage, played our hand. And when we played in cities like Calgary and Edmonton and Ottawa in the playoffs, it was a different ball game. Like you'd go to the city, and like everybody in the city knew you were playing for the opposing team. It was like we had to stay like outside of the city. One time we made the mistake of staying inside of Calgary in downtown, and the radio station found out that we were there apparently, and we had a wake up call at 5 a.m. from the radio station and by the megaphone, and it was they were like, it's 5 a.m. time for your wake up call, and like we all woke up because it was like a megaphone at the Sheraton Hotel, but you were very much in the spotlight in those other cities, the Canadian cities. But it's great, no matter what city you're playing. Halifax has amazing fans, and it was certainly a great year for that with the Memorial Cup.
100%. Dylan?
So you won multiple championships in your career. You won the Calder Cup. You also won the Stanley Cup. We'll get into the Stanley Cup here in a minute. What do you remember about winning the Calder Cup? Do you remember your emotions as the buzzer went off or as the time was counting down? What's the big moment during that stands out?
So I was traded at the deadline, or near the deadline, a few weeks before the deadline and the pro hockey deadline there in March, and I went to the Atlanta Thrashers and the farm team, the Chicago Wolves. We were the 8th seed in our conference. There was 9 seeds that were eligible for the playoffs, and the 9th seed and the 8th seed had a playoff in a lightning round, best 2 out of 3, to see who was going to get in. We played against the Cincinnati Mighty Ducks, ironically, and because we were the 8th seed, we had home ice advantage. So all 3 games were in our home ice in Allstate Arena in Chicago. In the first game, we lost. The second game, we were like, we might as well, our mindset was we weren't really in it to win it. As the 8th seed, we thought, what's the point? We all actually were excited to just have a big party and go home. And that was kind of our expectation. We were going to go have a big party, and it was going to be fun and play some hockey, but we're not going to win. So might as well just get this over with. And in the game 2, we were tied in overtime. And if we had lost that game, we were out. And their top goal scorer, Travis Brigley, had the wide open net. He had 2 or 3 seconds with nobody near him. Our goalie was actually out of the crease. Okay. So not even in the net. And he could have just turned around and put it in a wide open net just really easily and tapped it in. He could even skated it and nobody was near him. I was on the ice. So I remember vividly. And he turned around, he panicked, didn't realize how much time he had, and he shot it off the far post into the corner. We went down the other end and scored and won the game. And we ended up winning the series. And then we had to play off against the top team in our division, then in our conference, and so on. And we ended up winning the Calder Cup. We faced 4 elimination games. And that was a record at the time that we won 4 elimination games, game 7. And we got to the semifinals after winning 4 elimination games, and we're like, well, we're in the semifinals, we might as well win this. And so we shifted our mindset from let's just have a big party and go home to we've gotten this far, let's win. And so we won that series in the semifinals pretty easily, 4-1. Went to the finals, and we won that series. I wouldn't say easily, but we won 4-1. And so the deciding game, we scored in overtime and double overtime. And I was actually with a guy that played on the other team, Dave Roach, over the weekend at a charity event. And so we were reminiscing about that series. And so it was a lot of fun. And I was on the ice for the game-winning goal. I actually passed the guy behind the net, and it should have been a penalty. It was like a 2-hand, but when you're in overtime, you feel like you can get away with murder. And I literally did. I splashed the guy really hard in the back of the leg. And then we went on, broke the puck out, and made they went on a 2-on-1, and we scored the game-winning goal. And it was my first taste of winning at the pro level. And it was spectacular. The feeling was amazing. Somebody said, what was harder, winning the Stanley Cup or the Calder Cup? And I say the Calder Cup. Our team was the 8th seed. We had to play 5 rounds of hockey, including that lightning round, and win 4 elimination games. And I was just so exhausted by the end of it, just like I was in the Stanley Cup. But it was quite a run, and definitely a memorable moment.
It's funny, hockey is definitely a skill game, but it's every bit as much a skill game as it is a mental game. You know what I mean? You have to have the mental fortitude to say we're winning this, right? And I think it's just going back to the Mooseheads. A lot of the times we seem to be a third period team, and I think it's after this second intermission they've had their talk. They realize that they can win it, and they come out, and it's complete atmosphere change for them. and they come out and they're mentally more prepared, and they dominate in the third period. And do I like having a third period team? Not all the time, but it's a mindset, right?
Very much is.
Yeah.
Another one is obviously winning the Stanley Cup is a goal for every young hockey player. That's your number one goal. And it's what we hear about whenever we hear Stanley Cup champions talk. What I want to know is, do you remember your emotions when you guys won the Western Conference Championship and realized that you were getting that chance for the cup?
Yeah, so my emotions were of excitement. So what happened is we were playing the Detroit Red Wings, who had a very comparable team to ours. They actually had more regular season points than we did. We finished second overall. They finished first overall. They essentially had more shootout wins than we did. That was the difference. We weren't very good in shootouts as far as a record in the regular season. We lost more shootouts than we won, and they won more than they lost. And that was the difference. And they finished ahead of us. But we had to start on the road. We ended up splitting the road series. We won game 2, lost game 1, came back home, and we actually lost 6-0 in front of our home fans, like in game 3. It was embarrassing. Like we came home thinking, okay, now we're in the driver's seat of this series, and lost 6-0, like lost miserably. It was embarrassing to say the least. And on top of that, Chris Pronger was suspended for a elbow to Thomas Holmstrom and cut him for a bunch of stitches. It was pretty gruesome. He only ended up getting 1 game, thankfully. But in that game, he was sitting out. We had to come back in game 4 facing a lot of adversity without our future Hall of Fame defenseman, and our 7th defenseman was Rick Jackman. I would say Rick and I were 6 and 7. Like I was the 6th defenseman most of the time, but occasionally he would get in, and he got in because Chris was suspended, and he got the game-winning goal, which was great for Rick and it's great for our team. And the unfortunate part for me was that when your team lineup is working, you don't change it. So I was the odd man out now. I was the 7th defenseman sitting in the stands. So when we won the conference, I was a healthy scratch. So I wasn't dressed in my gear. I was having to watch from the stands, and while of course I was happy for our team to get to the finals, I felt like, holy cow, we're going to the finals. There was also that sense of, well, am I going to get back in the lineup? Am I going to get a chance to play? And it was tough. I was out of the lineup for 3 weeks, for 5 games during the playoffs, and had to wait for my moment to get back in.
And you won it without the flying V.
That's right.
Go ahead, Doug.
You played with many, many notable players that were on that Stanley Cup team. To name a few, you got Solani, Pronger, Getzlaff, Perry. Did you guys know and did you guys feel that you had the team to make that run for it all?
Absolutely. We believed right from the day one. And how that came about was the season before, in 2005, 2006, we were a non-playoff team up into Christmas. We had guys like Sergei Fedorov and Peter Sikora, Keith Carney, Tandis Ojolin, like a lot of well-known guys that played for the Ducks for a few years. We're on that famous run in 2003 when Jaguar was the Conn Smythe winner as a runner-up, and so they had a good core from that group. Unfortunately, Paul Kariya was not on the team anymore, and Fedorov was new to the team. And so we had kind of an identity crisis. In 2004, right before the lockout season, right after they went on that run, they didn't actually make the playoffs in Anaheim. And so then they had the season off with the lockout, and then we were coming back into it with a new coach and a new general manager. Well, Brian Burke, who took over the team, like he was a tough guy. Like he valued toughness, where our star players didn't really have that quality. So he realized that, and courageous and good on him. He actually made a lot of really tough decisions early on in the season. Traded a lot of those guys I mentioned, all got traded, and he brought in guys that didn't have the same level of skill. I would say they even less skill than what we traded, but they had the toughness core value. And when we added that element to our team, we were a non-playoff team at Christmas. After Christmas, after we made those moves with arguably less skill on paper, we actually were the second best NHL team for as far as record in the league, and we actually moved down to the seed in our conference, made the playoffs, beat Calgary, beat Colorado, and then we went to the semifinals before we losing to Edmonton Oilers, who went on to lose in the finals to the Carolina Hurricanes. And we started to believe, wow, we're in the top four. Like, we've got a team that can make it. And then in the offseason, when you make a trade for a guy like Chris Pronger, who was on the Edmonton Oilers, who was a game changer in that series, the reason why we lost, we thought, oh wow, we've got a team now. And the Hockey News had a title on it of one of their editions before the season started, and it just said Team of Destiny, and then it said the Anaheim Ducks, and it picked us to win the Stanley Cup. So when we were getting ready for practice one day, and Brian Burke came in and he said, boys, he says, have you guys seen this? And he was holding the Hockey News, and he said, boy, isn't that impressive? And we knew that something else was going to follow that, because he was a pretty gruff guy, and he wasn't too optimistic. He didn't that wasn't his personality to be enthusiastic. So we knew there was a punchline coming, and he goes, boys, he says, guess how many times the Hockey News has been correct at picking the Stanley Cup champion over the last 8 years? And we paused, and nobody wanted to say anything, and he goes, they're 0 for 8. And so we knew right then and there that we had our work cut out for us, that just because we were picked as the team of destiny, that we weren't going to be handed the trophy. And Brian went on to put that vision in our minds, that he said if we didn't win the Stanley Cup that year, it was going to be a disappointment, that it wasn't good enough to make the finals. It wasn't good enough to make the semifinals. If we didn't win the cup, we were going to be disappointed. And that's what we started to believe. We were the team of destiny, even though it had an asterisk next to it. We believed that we had a team that could win. And we went on a 16-game unbeaten streak at the start of the season, which was an NHL record at the time. And then we started, that was really affirmation that, wow, we're a good team. And the cool thing is in that playoff run, the 21 games we played, we were 16-5 in our record in the playoffs, which is pretty dominating. I think Colorado did it 16-4 or 16-3, or like they had a even better record than we did. But I never felt like our team played a full 60 minutes. I felt like we played 58 minutes or 50 minutes of a game. We would have these lulls, even in playoff games, where we didn't play our best. And we were that good that we could still beat teams in the playoffs. Like, that's how, and every team played their best game against us. But none of them really came close other than Detroit. That was the closest series. It was pretty dominant run for us. But we believed from start to finish that we were the team of destiny, and that anything less than a win was going to be utter disappointment.
That's what I thought about the Mooseheads last year. I thought they were going to go the distance, and they're much the same way. They don't play a full game. They don't play a full 60, and they still go and win more often than not. Knock on wood, right? But
very similar.
Yeah. So you played.
Well, I have one more, right quick, leading off of what he just said.
Okay, go ahead.
Because you mentioned somebody else that was very important.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Anaheim team in J.S. Shagir. He was also very, very important in Moosehead history. So getting to play with him on the Ducks after you said that you were a Moosehead fan previously and you were the first person to wear the Moosehead jersey, did you form a relationship with him very quickly, considering you both played for the same junior team, even though it was different times?
And he played for our inaugural year as well. But he was one of the first team, right?
Yeah, no, he was the first goalie, him and Frederick Shasibi. And Freddie was actually a teammate of mine in Chicago, ironically. So I got to play with Freddie and Jiggy. And they ended up training Fred, I think, partway through his Moosehead's career. But he was another top goalie that they had drafted. Anyway, Jiggy was phenomenal to play with as a teammate. As a defenseman, obviously we're pretty close to the goalie. He was always encouraging and optimistic about my game and my value on the team, and was always there to give me pointers. And as a veteran guy at that point, and he'd already won the Conn Smythe Trophy when I arrived, he was very well respected and known as a winner and a competitor. So he took me under his wing, and just it helped me have confidence with some of the older guys and the veteran guys in the team that I belonged. And he was great for that. And he's always been a big fan of mine in terms of just being there for me and encouraging me as a depth player on the team. He's always been a fan of my game, and that's always helped me have confidence and knowing that he had my back and saw the value I was bringing to the team as a role player.
So did you guys ever reminisce about former Moose times?
No, we never played together as on the Moosehead team, but
No, but you had that in common, right? So I'm just curious if you ever discussed the Moose while you're playing together for the Ducks.
here or there, it would come up that we played, but we didn't actually tell stories about that because we didn't have similar teammates. So it was kind of a slightly different era. But he obviously loved Halifax and loves Halifax. He still comes back in the summer and stays at his cottage with his wife's from Halifax area. And so there was always that connection. He always thought Halifax is his second hometown and feels a strong connection to it. So I think we had that bond for sure, and we did have something in common. We had the same coach with Sean McKenzie, so there was that aspect too. Jiggy actually came to my Stanley Cup party as well, so he was in town and made an effort to come and celebrate with me when I had the 24 hours of the cup. So
That's awesome.
so it was nice. I still have a nice photo of the two of us holding the Stanley Cup up at my Stanley Cup party, and yeah, he was always like I said, a big supporter of mine, and that went a long way because I looked up to him and what he did in the game. And I remember watching the playoff series on TV where he was the Conn Smythe winner, and it was quite a remarkable run that year for him.
So, Jiggy, if you watch this, I do have both your Canadian address and your American address. And I was going to write you a letter, but if you're watching this, we'd love to have you on the show. Sorry, just a little plug there. I apologize, but we've been trying to contact Jiggy since we started this to have him on the show. If anybody knows a way to contact him, let us know. But if not, like I said, we have his addresses and we'll send him out a letter. This you kind of answered one of my questions. You must run into former Mooseheads or former people you played for different leagues. Is it like when you're at the NHL level and you run into somebody that you played with in a junior or against in a junior? Is it something that you remember, like their mannerisms, how they handle themselves? Is it something that you can exploit to advance your game?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So in the QMJHL, there'll be people that also play in the NHL. When you see them at that higher level, are you able to remember the way they played and kind of use that to your advantage?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So like if I played against a guy in junior and then faced him again in the pros,
yeah,
and kind of knowing his style and what some of their tendencies are. Well, really, there wasn't a lot of guys in Quebec League that I ended up playing against in the pros. It's just like there's not a lot of guys that end up making that jump from the Quebec League to the NHL. I mean, there's a fair amount, but it's like they might have been in the NHL, I might have been in the American League, or they might have been in Europe, I might have been. So running into them was rare. I can't think of anyone in particular that I mean, there was definitely guys that came across that I played against in junior, but there was also a lot of games in junior. So you didn't play against the Maritime teams a little bit more. I can't remember really any of the guys that I played against that intimately so often that I struck up that really understanding the type of player they were. And the pro game is totally different. And it's a different animal altogether, where a lot of the guys that were star players in junior are now role players in the pro game. So it's like their game is reinvented. So I don't even look like the same player as I did as junior, playing on the power play, and now I'm killing penalties and playing less ice time. So they were probably a lot of them in similar boats. So guys that were really good like Richards, they went on to a NHL career from day one, and I was in the American League for 5 years, and so not a lot of crossover there.
Okay, nice. Philip?
So another one that just popped in my head. You being from Cole Harbour and bringing the cup there, you were one of the first ones to bring it there. Playing in the NHL, what was it like when you knew that Crosby, like when you played against Crosby, somebody who else is from Cole Harbour, what was that experience like as a defenseman, having him come down on you, arguably when he was the number one guy in the league at the time?
Unfortunately, I never got to play against Crosby. I was a healthy scratch for both games, so I don't think I can only imagine what that would have been like.
So, but
you were proud of him either way, being from the same place and stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When I won the cup, or when we won the cup in Anaheim, he was being awarded, I think, Rookie of the Year or Hart Trophy. He got some NHL award in that same year, and he actually, had the class to thank me in his speech for the award, and
That's
said, "I just want to
amazing.
congratulate
That's awesome.
for being from the same hometown and win the Stanley Cup." Like that was really amazing. And I invited him to come to the party. He declined politely, and that it was my day. And but he had his time with the cup two years later, which was, and he's had it several times since then. But it's definitely proud to be from the same hometown, and for sure Cole Harbor is a special place.
Now that's something interesting. Again, off top or not off topic, but off script here. Being from Cole Harbor with Nathan and Crosby and yourself, and you know what? Let's broaden it and say Halifax and Marchand. Are these all people that you speak to occasionally? Is it like some like NHL club where they're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna call my buddy Sid or Nathan, or is it would they be just as untouchable to you as it is for us?
Yeah, we don't get together too often. It may be at golf tournaments and whatnot, but it is pretty special that that we're all from the same area, and we'll always have that bond. And we'll be at an event, and it's like I'm part of the old or different generation, and then there's Cam is part of a different generation. In terms of like years between us, like Cam is about 10 years older than me. I'm about 10 years older than Sid, and Nathan's about 10 years younger than Sid. So there's different kind of eras, but it's nice just to be, for me, somebody like their level is like Brad is one of the top players in the world, and of course the other guys mentioned of the same boat. I was a role player, so for me it's like nice to be grouped in with those that level caliber. And but yeah, it's special. Like we always share a bond coming from the same area and playing in the same minor hockey systems with a lot of the same coaches and same tournaments and hotels on the road and when we were kids and horsing around. We all know what it feels like to be from this area, and our families are from here, so we're all proud of it. So it is it's a bond that you'll always have, no matter like guys being from this area, because it was really rare back in the days for somebody to make it to the pros, and now it's a little less rare, but it's still special for all of us.
So we've taken up so much of your time, and again, we really do appreciate it. Dylan, we'll let you field the last question, and then I'm going to make an open forum for Joe here.
This is simple one. How often do you bring out your championship rings?
Well, I wore it for you guys here. I got it on the screen so you guys can see it.
Oh, it's amazing.
So I wear it a couple times a week, I would say, on average, because I'm in the business world now, and it's a good conversation piece. People want it, and I want to show it off. Why not? It's not so much sit in a drawer. But pretty cool history to it. There's 110 diamonds in the ring. Do you guys want to take a guess as to why that is?
110th anniversary of the Stanley Cup.
No, it's a good guess.
Nope. Something to do with Disney?
No, it's actually, we had 110 points in the regular season that year.
Oh.
We had 50 wins and 10 overtime losses. And there's 16 big diamonds that make up the Stanley Cup. You see the top of the cup, the bigger diamond. That represents the 16th win against Ottawa in Game 5. And then on the side, it has California's first cup written there. It was the first time an NHL team had ever won the Stanley Cup in the state of California. It also has the record, 16 wins and 5 losses. And then on this side, it has the player's last name and number. And it also has the year 1993. And if you look closely, you can see the Mighty Ducks symbol near the bottom. And that was to pay homage to Disney when they bought the team in 93. And then you'll see green diamonds in the ring. One diamond, every diamond that's green represents a season when they were called the Mighty Ducks. Then there's a white diamond and then 2 orange diamonds. The white diamond is when they sold the team, and the 2 orange diamonds symbolize the new ownership.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. That is wicked. So just one last thing. Is there anything that, well, first of all, you say you're in the business world. Is there something you'd like to promote?
I work with entrepreneurs. That's who I work with in their leadership teams, and I help entrepreneurs get more what they want from their business. I help implement a system called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and I'm working with so many great entrepreneurs here in the community. It's been a lot of fun. I've been doing it for 3 years. So if anyone's an entrepreneur out there that has 10 to 250 employees, it's kind of the sweet spot of the clients I work with, reach out to me on Facebook or LinkedIn, and I can tell you a little bit more about it.
Awesome. And is there anything you'd like to say to the Moose fans, Moose players, or Moose organizations for your time with them?
Yeah, it was amazing to be a part of this organization. They always treated me first class, and they gave me so much. And so I'm a fan now. I want to support the team, and it's just a great organization. It's hard to believe it's been 30 years. So I'm excited to still be part of the community and part of the fan base and give back. And we're looking to start an alumni organization here in the next little while as part of the 30-year anniversary. Get some alumni back engaged in the community and connect it to this amazing franchise that we've been blessed to be part of.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do with this, by getting the former players and stuff, get them still in the community's eyes and get the update on how everything's going right now. But
Excellent.
We've taken up enough of your time. We want to thank you very much for taking this time to come and chat with a small little YouTube channel like this. Just all we like to do is talk about the Mooseheads and hockey. So thank you very much. I can't say that enough for giving us the time.
Yeah, you're an absolute gem. I really appreciate your time here.
Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Dylan. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Take care of yourself. Chat soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Guys.